What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Volunteer Tip Tuesday, where every Tuesday I'm trying to give you some practical tips that are going to help make you a better youth leader. Today's video is going to be focused specifically on middle school boys. See, I remember my very first time leading a middle school boys small group. I was in college, and up until that point in my life, I'd only led high school groups. Well, then I jumped in to help out on a middle school night, and of course I was put with the 6th grade boys. And I remember halfway through this thing thinking, oh my goodness, these kids are out of control. Like, I suck as a leader. I got to the end of the night and I was like, what in the world? And I felt like an epic failure as a small group leader. These kids were obnoxious. These kids were just talking. They're messing around. They're being crazy. They're hyper. And I was like, oh my goodness, I suck at leading groups. Well, then what I later realized after years of doing youth ministry and talking to other people who'd led middle school groups is this is almost everyone's experience when they first begin leading a middle school boys small group, particularly 6th and 7th grade boys. And really the reality is this, that age group, some things that are true when you get a bunch of those kids together in a group is that they're crazy, they're high energy, they're obnoxious, they're talkative, they're like difficult to control, they've got ADD, they're just like crazy. And so I realized, wow, this is a tough age group to lead, yet we want to do a great job at leading small groups for 6th grade boys and 7th grade boys and 8th grade boys. So what I want to do in this video is I want to give you 8 thoughts that I think are going to help you to win when you're leading middle school boys groups. This is definitely not an exhaustive list, but I think it will be helpful for you as you lead middle school guys groups. Number 1, have fun with them. That might be obvious, but man, don't just come in there like we're just gonna be serious. Like, come in and have some fun with your guys. One of the best ways you can connect to them is to have fun with them and laugh with them. And like, people, you don't have fun with people that you don't like. Think about that. Like, your students will know that you like them if you have fun with them. So number 1 tip is to have fun with your middle school guys. That one shouldn't be too challenging. Number 2 is you need to be in charge. You need to be the leader, to be the authority of your group and be the one who sets the tone by laying down the law. And I say that because here's why. Over the years of being a youth pastor, I've had multiple times when a student would come up to me or a parent would come up to me and I'd say, hey, how's your small group going? And they'll be like, oh, it's going pretty good. But they weren't like pumped about it. And I'm like, why isn't it going great? You know, they're like, well, it's cool and all, but we don't really ever get serious. We never really like talk about God or the Bible or anything. And I'm like, really? You never talk about God or the Bible? And so then I'd go and talk to the small group leader of this particular student and say, hey, I was talking to your kids and one of your kids said, hey, you guys never really talk about like the Bible or Jesus or anything like that. What's going on with that? And so the small group leader says, well, who was it? And I told them the name of the kid and they're like, what? That kid is the most obnoxious kid that kid is the reason that we can't get serious ever in the group, because that kid is causing all the other kids to be obnoxious and wild. And I'm like, huh, interesting. What I've discerned over having multiple conversations like this over many years is that middle school boys, many of them, they actually want to talk about God and spiritual things. They want to be serious, but what happens is when they get around their friends is they lose their mind. They just are like, with all their friends, they're like, ah! Like, that is what happens in their brain when they're with all their friends. It's just like, ah! And so, though they may want to in their heart take this time seriously and talk about God and talk about real things, when they're with their friends, they just can't do it. And what they need from you as their small group leaders, they need you to force them to take that time seriously. They need you to be the adult in charge who forces them to calm down for a second and have a serious conversation. That may seem like an oxymoron with this age group, but I believe it is possible. But they need you to be the authoritarian, to be the boss, to be the leader who's in charge and who forces them to take it seriously. Now listen, that your middle school kids, they're never going to tell you that. I am here to tell you today that they need you to force them to take it seriously, and they want you to force them to take it seriously. You need to lay down the law, particularly at the beginning of the school year. If you're leading a middle school group, like, set the tone, like, hey, we're going to take this time seriously every week, not the whole time of our group, but for part of this small group time, we are going to be serious in our time together. Do it. Trust me. They want you to do it. They need you to do it. And if you don't do it, your group will be completely out of control. Third thought for you for middle school boys is they need you to be interested in them and in their life. Not just what they think about the Bible. They need you to genuinely be interested in them and in their life. And so ask them questions and listen to what they have to say and get to know them for real. With that, with point 1 and point 2, have fun and get to know them. There's this tension that you have to manage between, you need to be strict, like I was talking about in the last point, but you also need to just get to know them and be friends with them and care about them. So there's always this tension that you're going to be managing between having fun and being serious. And if you're a younger leader, like if you're below the age of like a parent of a middle schooler, you're gonna lean more towards like, I'm just gonna have fun and be their friend, and you're gonna have to force yourself probably more towards be the one in charge and be strict side. If you're a parent age or above, you may have to force yourself to lean more towards getting to know them and having fun with them and that kind of thing. So care about your kids is point number 3, and be interested in their lives. Thought number 4 is pray for them. That might seem obvious, that might seem simple, but it's critically important. If you genuinely do care about these kids, pray for them. If you don't care for them, pray for them, and through that praying for them, God will shift your heart to genuinely care for your students. They need God in a big way at this time in their life. It's one of the hardest times of life for most people, is 6th grade and 7th grade and 8th grade. So your students need you to bring them before the Father in prayer and lift them up in prayer. Pray for your students on a regular basis when you're with them and when you're not with them. Thought number 5 is get them moving. They don't want to just sit still all the time. The most successful middle school boys groups are not the ones that just sit in a circle and talk. Figure out something you can do to get them moving, get them to walk around the building or run around the building outside, or get them to do a push-up contest at the beginning of your group, and then in the middle of your group, and then maybe at the end of your group, or jumping jacks. Just figure out something that you can do to get them to move. Like I've had times in my group where they were so crazy, I'm like, let's just go outside, guys. And we walked around the building while trying to have a discussion in our group, and it actually turned into a better discussion because it's something about when they're moving, it helps divert some of that crazy energy and allows them to focus a little bit better. True story. So figure out a way to get your students moving. Number 6 is be creative. If you can figure out an activity or something that you can do to bring whatever the teaching is for that day or the message into their world, it will help a lot. Something that they can put hands on, something that they can do that's interactive. Maybe you bring in something they have to put together. Maybe you bring in candy that has some sort of illustration. If you can, every time you meet, build in some sort of interactive activity into your group. If it relates to the lesson, awesome. If it doesn't, if it's just gonna help them to have fun and connect with each other, awesome. That will be a win. The human pretzel, the human whatever, some sort of challenge that they have to do as a group is gonna be beneficial for the overall quality of your middle school boys' small group. Point number 7, probably if you have 5 minutes of serious discussion with 6th grade boys, you're winning. Probably maybe 5 to 10 minutes with 7th grade boys, you're winning. Probably 10 to 15 minutes with 8th grade boys, you're winning. I'm telling you, 5 minutes of serious discussion with 6th grade boys is a win. And you're like, that's it, 5 minutes? And we're together for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever. Trust me, if 15 of it is craziness and 5 is serious, usually I have to work for 20 minutes to get 5 minutes of actual productive conversation going. And so 5 minutes of good conversation, count it as a win. And if you do that week after week after week, pretty soon, eventually that 5 is gonna turn into 10 minutes, that 10 is gonna turn into 15, the 15 is gonna turn into 20. If you stick with them for long enough, they're gonna get older, they're gonna get more mature, they're gonna grow, and pretty soon you're gonna have like real, significant spiritual conversations are gonna matter to their life if you stick with it. So my last point, don't give up on them. Stick with your students. You're gonna be tempted to quit within the first 2 weeks. I promise you, it will get better if you stick with them over time. If you stick with them for 3 weeks, it's not gonna get better. If you stick with them for 3 years, you're gonna see significant improvement. This phase, when they're 6th grade and 7th grade and 8th grade, is very important, but it's the phase when you don't see a ton of the fruit of your labors, and so you have to just trust, like, I'm gonna be faithful and I'm gonna stick with these guys and I'm gonna get their back. They're in such a hard time of their life and such a crazy time. They need an adult who loves Jesus and who's gonna care about them, who's gonna stick with them for week after week and keep showing up. And if they're obnoxious, you're gonna keep showing up. And if they're rude, you're gonna keep showing up. If they're crazy, you're just gonna keep showing up, because God didn't give up on you, and so you're not going to give up on these students. I'm telling you, if you will stick with them and stick with them, that's what they need. That's what's going to allow God to use you in a big way in their life. If you don't give up on them, don't quit on them, stick with them. Middle school small group leading is hard, guys, and what you're doing is important. It's super important, so stick with it, and I think God is going to use you in significant ways in those guys' lives, even if they never tell you. I'm telling you, your role is huge and so important. So thank you for doing what you do at leading middle school boys. It's gonna get better if you stick with them, I promise. Thanks for watching. That's what I got today. Volunteer Tip Tuesday. We'll see you for part 2 coming soon. It's really annoying when you're trying to make a video and cars drive by like, people, seriously.